Hey there, I'm a glue stick, so I have one job. I glue kid stuff. So sorry for being jealous of Geico, who does a ton more, like give you 24/7 access to thousands of licensed agents. And Geico has been around for over 75 years and has a 97% customer satisfaction rating. While I've just got mediocre adhesive skills, Geico also has an award-winning mobile app. Uh-oh, arts and crafts time. No eating the glue stick, Miss Lydia!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Helping you get set for the start of your work week for most of you in 2018. Glad you're with us on this Tuesday morning. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic here. Trevor Matich is in studio with us here. He knows what it takes to be a national champion in college and also knows what it means to play a tight end in the NFL. We'll get to all of that in a minute. You have something you want to address.
Yeah, it's got to be done. We just finished our last, for those we talked about from Mike and Mike with Green and I into this show, what we've done for the last couple of years, we have our DraftKings contest that Trey jumped into this year. So
which I regret immediately.
There were 11 people. That was my whole family, plus my son Jake's wife Jenny, so that's 6. You were 7. Greeny and his wife Stacy were 8 and 9. Cousin Eddie, who nobody knows, and you don't want to know Cousin Eddie, quite honestly.
All right.
And then Darius Rucker made 11. We're in it. And Megan Judge made up a here at ESPN Radio made up a fantasy football championship belt.
Mm-hmm. So
what did I say, Ron? What are you laughing at me for? Did I say something?
No, we're just laughing at you. Don't worry about that.
My wife won. This is the belt.
There's the belt. For those of you that aren't watching, it is very thick and has lots of jewels and football helmets.
We'll get a picture of this and we'll put it up on social media so the people on radio can see this. But yeah, my wife won this thing. My wife, Chris, is the winner. You were this last week. Good job out of you.
Yeah, well, I stopped caring about 12 weeks ago.
Well, listen, don't give me that excuse. You care or not care, you lost.
Yeah, that's fair.
She won, so I'll take the belt home. I'm sure she'll put it on and take a picture of it and rub it into all of us. She said she is available to come on the show for fantasy. I said 10:05 every day. She can come on.
10:05?
Yeah, that didn't go over well.
That time slot is open.
It is open.
So it is. So congratulations to Chris. Congratulations to the belt, and thanks to Megan Judge for making that. And you will revel in that misery
it's a nice belt,
for a year.
I will.
It's certainly a belt. There's no question about it. It is definitively a belt that has some championship bling on it. Trevor Matich, championship bling. Again, national champion in college. A first-round pick, right? 17th?
Yes, sir. 28th. That was the last pick in the first round.
I was off by 11. But you were in the first round.
Yes, sir.
That's
okay,
all
rub
that
it in.
matters.
I was 255, okay, whatever.
I was 4,643 for the last 20 years. So congratulations to you, Trevor. Okay, obviously we saw two completely different games in the semifinals. We saw a slugfest that was really all about defense between Alabama and Clemson. And while technically the Georgia defense played much better in the second half, we saw a shootout between Georgia and Oklahoma. As you were watching that Rose Bowl, I think the reactions on Twitter and to a lot of people seeing it were like, this is one of the greatest games we've ever seen. What was your impression of the quality of football between those two schools?
It was phenomenal because you're right. You're talking about a slugfest. And Mike Tyson said that every fighter's got a plan until he gets hit in the mouth. And both of these teams hit the other in the mouth in the way that they do it. And I thought it was interesting at the end of the first half when Oklahoma looked like they were going to run away with this game. Halftime, I was thinking, you know something? Georgia's averaging 16.5 yards per carry, and they're trailing. And I thought, if
that was insane, right?
If Oklahoma didn't get that fixed, I thought that running game of Georgia was going to carry the day in the second half. And lo and behold, hitting somebody in the face still works in 2017 and 2018.
I enjoyed the entertainment, but as a former defensive player, I rarely enjoy a 54-48 game as much.
You just need to, that's why there's so much joy in your life that you're missing out on.
I know. The squib kick at the end of the half, as I said, I would never squib kick in my life. I would rather do that high, short kick if you don't want to kick to the return man, but gave a little momentum to Georgia. But those two big stops by Georgia coming out in the third quarter, 3 and out, 2 punts by Oklahoma, something we didn't see in the first half, I definitely thought was the momentum changer. Thought they switched up the coverage, got more pressure on Baker Mayfield in the second half, made him throw to more specific spots, and he struggled doing it, no doubt about it.
What's the advantage of having a Saban disciple as your head coach, Kirby Smart, of Georgia? Because in the first half, it looked like the defensive plan was to kind of mush rush, kind of contain Mayfield, and don't let him break out. And he would go touchdown, 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 field goal. So in the second half, they came out and said, well, that's not working.
Yeah.
How about plan B? And plan B was attack, be aggressive. Don't worry about containing him. Let's go hit the guy. And then they were more aggressive on the coverage, like you said as well.
5 sacks through the first 3 quarters.
Right. And so I think that aggression, that adjustment to really go after him instead of trying to contain him made all the difference for Georgia's defense. And Mike, you must have loved that.
Oh, I did. Listen, I said it before the game when we started talking about, or whenever we had to play against a mobile quarterback. I hated the fact of any coach that told a really good defensive line, hey, let's be disciplined. Let's stay in our lanes. Let's make sure we don't go up too far. I'd be like, hell no. Go rush the quarterback.
Right.
Go do your thing. You know what? Go do what made you a great defensive line and getting sacks.
Now, as an offensive lineman, which of those do you think I would prefer if I face you across the line?
What you would rather I'm more disciplined.
I want you to be disciplined.
Absolutely.
I want you to be gap sound.
I'm staying in my gap. I'm not going deeper than the quarterback. Right. I'm staying in the B gap and the other D tackles in the A gap where we're supposed to be. Makes it easier for you guys.
Well, I feel like this is a bastardization of the Bill Cowher soundbite from NFL Films talking to Greg Lloyd. And Greg Lloyd's taking all these things and Bill's going, rush the quarterback.
Yeah.
Rush the quarterback. Rush the quarterback.
And that's what they did. Yeah. That's the thing. When they got to the second half and they just started just going after the guy and didn't try to slow down. I watched those offensive linemen and you could tell that they were thinking what you were thinking. It was like, oh no, look at this change. As an offensive lineman, what happens is if you're playing disciplined football, if it looks bad, it doesn't embarrass me. We just don't gain 2 yards, right? If you're coming after the quarterback, if you're busting those gaps and you're going with your hair on fire, it embarrasses me and it injures my quarterback.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just a whole different world, and that's exactly what Georgia did. It was all about punching the other guy in the mouth in a different way.
Trevor Matich with us, our college football analyst, joining us in studio, giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. So that was the Georgia-Oklahoma game. And then we just saw that for lack of a better term, that python that is Alabama defense. And there's been a lot of talk this entire season. Yeah, this defense is good. They're not as good as some of the other defenses we've seen for Alabama, and they did. But boy, I tell you what, they squeezed the life out of Clemson from the first series, and they never let go.
Yeah, the anaconda defense. And that's how they do it. It's like an anaconda. Anaconda wraps itself around a little sheep. And the little sheep in the beginning thinks, well, it's not so bad. I think I might be able to wiggle out of this. And then little by little, he just squeezes and suffocates until it's just clear to everybody that little sheep didn't have a chance from the first instant. And that's what Bama got back to in this one. A lot of it had to do with attitude, though, because they felt disrespected. And I don't think they were. They didn't win their own conference. So when people talked about them not having won their own conference and maybe not being worthy of the playoff, that shouldn't be a sign of disrespect to them. That's just fair evaluation of what the committee does. But you know this, Mike, that football players will take disrespect in anything they need to in order to feel disrespected. We want to feel disrespected. It makes us happy to feel disrespected. And Bama came out there wanting to, well, back to the same thing, a fight. To them, this wasn't a football game. Clemson was playing a football game. Alabama was in a fight. And Clemson didn't realize it until it was too late.
You know, every team looks to get a chip on their shoulder, and Alabama's a hard team to find to put a chip on their shoulder because they're usually at the top of the mountain, but they found a way to do that. And let's make no mistake, both these defenses were great. It's not like the juggernaut Alabama, they had a pick six go one way, and they had another pick that put them right in scoring position. So that Clemson defense, especially that D-line, which led the FBS in sacks, is incredible as well. But I thought this, for those that were expecting the last 2 years where Clemson went over 500 yards each year, put up a ton of points, you had no Deshaun Watson, you had no Mike Williams, you had no Wade Gallman. You had no big-time players especially against a team like Alabama. So it didn't shock me as much when Clemson wasn't going to put up a lot of points or a lot of yards. But 188 total yards and just 6 points. I did expect a little more than that, which just goes to show, man, that defense is just – and I think that Nick used the right word, ferocious. They were a ferocious defense. They were hungry. Call it the anaconda. I call it the picket fence. They are so well disciplined. They have such great on the running plays, have your space, don't get burned anywhere, and then when they need to attack, they attack with such great athletic ability.
If somebody called your defense a picket fence, would you think that was a compliment?
Well, it doesn't sound great.
You would have to explain. Once you explain it, it is meant as a compliment.
The pressure is.
No. Picket fence meaning the fence posts are right where they need to be, and that's where, as a defense, you're where you need to be. You're taking care of your responsibility.
Yeah, but a picket fence is this kind of flimsy
little white thing.
You can step over it or you can walk through it.
I got an offensive guy and trying to explain something to, and a guy that doesn't know anything that I'm trying to explain something to.
Listen, but I own that. Okay?
Yeah,
I own that.
Okay.
I just think Anaconda. I think if you ask Alabama, picket fence or Anaconda,
no.
they're all in on Anaconda.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, but you're totally right, though, about the concept. Because I think when you look at Alabama took advantage of the fact that Clemson's quarterback, Kelly Bryant, wasn't all that good at throwing the ball deep down the field with accuracy. So they said, okay, our secondary is really good. We're going to lock down. We're going to dare you to throw it over the top. And in the meantime, we're going to come up and smash you in your running game. And if your plan is to smash Alabama and beat them by imposing your will with the run game, most teams in America, that's not a good plan.
Well, that's going to be Georgia's plan.
Georgia, though, is not most teams in America.
Right. That is true, and that's going to be the difference in this game. They are going to try and do that with two big-time running backs, and quite honestly, a freshman quarterback who's shown some pretty good poise.
Well, I was stunned.
Yeah?
I mean, really stunned. The whole book on Jake Fromm, Georgia's freshman quarterback, true freshman, was that he has talent, but he doesn't have the experience to be able to carry the team if the running game doesn't go. Well, the running game did go in this game.
It did.
But they didn't rely on the running game early.
No.
They established the pass
First
early.
down pass especially, yeah.
And Jake Fromm was able to, in key moments, in crunch time, at the end of the game, he made key throws accurately under pressure after first having made the right decision. And if he can carry that into the championship game, then he will have something that Clemson did not, which is a credible threat down the field.
Trevor Matich with us in studios. I'm glad you guys brought that up because in light of the whole Baker Mayfield experience, which we saw, and what happened between Alabama and Clemson and the running game for Georgia, it did get sort of lost in the shuffle what Fromm was able to do as a freshman out there on that stage. Now, he had the one play which I'm sure he wants back and will be discussed lengthy in film this week. Just take the sack instead of that pitch where he tried to throw avoid this, which could have been epically disastrous.
It ended up being intentional grounding.
That could have been the game.
And that was the best possible scenario for that play.
Yeah, you're right.
Intentional grounding. That was the only head scratcher. But he made some. We've talked a little bit about the question marks about Baker at the next level and fitting into some tight windows. He made some throws into some very tight windows in that game that I think will be very impressive to watch his development as a potential NFL quarterback over the next few years.
I would take Baker Mayfield first of the quarterbacks that are available right now. Now that's pending interviews.
You're talking about against Rosen and
Josh
Allen.
Rosen, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold if he comes out, all these folks. And I would need interviews. There's a lot of work left to be done. I want to talk to the guy. I want to understand his work ethic. I want to understand a lot about him. But when you talk about that accuracy, Trey, that's the first thing that I see. I mean, he runs around doing college-y things, Baker Mayfield. He makes people miss. He's exciting. He extends plays. It's really fun. And we're so thrilled watching that as just fans that what gets lost is the fact that then he threw the ball off his back foot, drifting to the side, deep down the field, and it was a pinpoint accurate pass. And he does that all the time.
See, I disagree there. I thought last night when he was asked to throw accurate passes in tight windows, he didn't. He overthrew and he missed receivers. And that actually raised a flag to me of what he's going to have to do at the next level because we know the windows are a lot tighter in the NFL. I thought he missed on some of those plays, especially that last fourth down play, the wheel route, overthrew the back going down the sideline, missed a couple other throws downfield. That actually gave me a little bit of pause because through the year, and that's why I always say, and I know you're not talking about it, don't look at completion percentage and all that stuff. Look at how he throws the ball, where he throws the ball. Does he throw a guy open? Is he waiting for the guy to get open? And in the Big 12 sometimes, a guy is pretty open, pretty wide open at times. It makes the throws a little easier. That's why name me the last Big 12 quarterback that's been successful in the NFL. Don't worry about it. You can't.
Long-term or short-term. I mean, RG3 was Rookie of the Year in 2012, but then you're right.
If that's where you're hanging your hat.
No, I'm just saying.
So that actually gave me a little bit of pause, Trevor, last night because playing against a defense that was more athletically inclined, like an NFL type of defense, where the windows got closed in the second half, I thought he missed a few that he should have had, because I want him to be good in the NFL. I love his demeanor. A lot of people call him cocky, don't like some of the, man, players love to play for him. I think he's a great leader. I think teammates are a magnet toward him, and I love the way he creates, but I worry when he's got to make that throw if he can make that throw.
I see it differently. Now, you're right that he missed a few.
Right.
Yesterday. And one of them, the big one, the obvious one, he tried to throw to his tight end, Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
And that was an adjustment by Georgia.
Right.
Those guys were open in the first half.
They were.
On that particular play, there was a guy right behind Andrews, like he was wearing his shirt.
Yep.
There was a guy in front that Mayfield had to loft the ball over. Mm-hmm. That's why it was thrown a little high. And then there was a guy behind who caught the ball, intercepted the ball. They had him bracketed by three guys, basically. Yeah. So to me, that's more of a decision than it is accuracy. But at the same time, what I think NFL coaches or scouts will go back and look at now is not can he throw accurate. I think he's very accurate. The thing is, in the second half, when Georgia took the reins off the defenders and let them go after him, he was under pressure like he had never been really in his career at Oklahoma. More relentlessly and more physical hits at the end of it all to distract him. And I think scouts will go back and look and see, okay, is that a problem now? Yeah. Because I've seen him throw the accuracy. But what we haven't seen is him under physical duress that much.
And he did get phically hit last night.
Listen, he took a knee to the ribs.
That was
a cheap shot.
Well, hold on a minute. He was pushed into him, actually.
Well,
I looked at the replays. Number 5 for Georgia. I can't remember his name because I saw the play and I was like, whoa, that was tough. But if you watch it, now you could say maybe he was trying to maneuver his knee. I get that, but he was put. That's why there wasn't a penalty.
You're right that's why there wasn't a penalty.
Yes.
The official was technically correct in a no call. However, that is a push in the mall. It's not a push on a football field. That guy didn't get pushed.
I have absolutely zero issue with what the guy did. I'll be honest. You can call me a
defensive guy? So a quarterback's laying on the ground, and it's okay for a defensive guy to come in after he's on the ground and jam a knee into his ribs.
If it was a penalty, he would have got thrown. Wasn't a penalty.
Wow. See, now this is...
It's just like if you hold and it's not called, was it holding?
Is holding breaking your ribs on the ground?
That's the way it goes.
Well, depends on how strong your grip is.
Physical football game. That's the way it goes, man.
Here's what happens, though.
It's what happens, man.
If the officials need to call things like that, though. This didn't happen in the game last night, but here's what can happen. On offense, and I'm sure it's with you guys as well, if guys are chop blocking in ways that are unethical. Maybe illegal, but unethical.
Right.
But on offense, if we see players like a Vontaze Burfict, for example, perfect example, doing things that we think are going to injure our guys that are outside the realm of football. Good, hard football, fine. Play to the whistle, through the whistle. That's expected. But if you go outside of football, which I think if that knee was intentional, I don't know if it was intentional or not. If it was, that's not football. That's assault.
I agree, but then you're asking those guys to judge intent, which is very difficult.
No, I get that. But I'm talking about now from the perspective of the offensive player.
Right.
If I see that happening and I think my guys are in danger now and the officials don't handle it, I got to handle it.
I agree with that.
That sort of happened for that game got a little chippy right after that for a while.
It did.
But you're right. If you're an O-lineman and you saw that, I would expect an O-lineman, if you're going to do that, again, we don't know the intent or not, but if it was, or even if you saw it, quite honestly, if it wasn't intentional, you guys would want to go after the guy anyway.
And then we start doing that, and what do you do as a defender?
Oh, we police as well.
And if the officials don't handle this, then we have to do it, and that is not good entertainment. It's not good football.
I agree with that. So that's the thing. We don't know what happened out there. Did the ref say on the field, hey, it was pushed into him?
The official was technically correct. Trey's right.
Right.
The ref was technically correct. I'm just talking about it not from his perspective, but from my perspective if I'm on that field.
I understand completely what you're saying. Yeah.
All right, so Trevor Matich with us in studio. So it's set now. It's the SEC title game, for lack of a better term, as you have Alabama and Georgia who did not play.
Really funny.
Who did not play in the place where they play the SEC title game.
Every other conference right now is wailing and gnashing their teeth.
That's right, but then it becomes the question of can Kirby Smart do what really hardly any Nick Saban assistants have been able to do. Find a way to beat that guy. Was he 11-2 against his assistants in his career?
11-0.
11-0.
And he wins them by at least 14 points.
So do we believe, literally when push comes to shove, because that's going to be this game, the Georgia offensive line trying to push apart that picket fence or anaconda defense of Alabama. Because that's Georgia's MO. We want to wear you guys down in the second half, and that's exactly what Alabama's MO is on defense. We want to wear you down on the second half.
Right, and picket fence, of course, a stiff breeze will knock a picket fence down.
No, stop it. Not if it's built correctly.
I think what you're trying to do, Mike, is you're trying to make Alabama feel disrespected for this game, too. So they'll come out ferocious
planting
again.
A seed.
Yeah, no. Here's why Kirby Smart, though, the Georgia head coach, can get this thing done. He's got a quarterback that can do what Alabama's quarterback can't, and that's throw the ball more accurately. Now, Jalen Hurts has been there before, and so, and Fromm is coming on, but this is the championship game. It's another order of magnitude. Can Fromm do it in this game? Well, he did it in the last one. For goodness sake, maybe he can. And if Fromm can, then that gives Kirby Smart's offense a threat that Alabama's offense doesn't. And Kirby Smart knows what Alabama used to do, what Nick Saban loves to do against opponents whose quarterback can't threaten you down the field in a credible way. And so he knows exactly how to attack that.
I completely agree. I don't think Georgia can just line up and run the ball against Alabama. I just do not think they can do it. Fromm is going to be the key here. If he can back off that defense by completing some balls down the field, that's going to give him that shot.
And I thought Fromm was the key in this one, and I thought it was going to be the difference in favor of Oklahoma. Fromm proved me wrong.
So in this game,
I agree.
In this game, Alabama is a 4-point favorite right now in the opening line. Mm-hmm. They have been a favorite in 110 of their last 111 games. The only time of that they were the underdog was in 2015 against
Clemson.
Georgia.
Wow. Oh, Georgia.
Against Georgia.
Wow.
And what happened in that game?
Alabama won 38-10.
I thought you were going to say the only time that they were not favored was when there was a printer mistake and they were scheduled against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
But that is amazing. 110 out of 111, the only time you were underdog by 1 point against Georgia in Athens, and Alabama won 38-10.
So essentially we're going with the Lloyd Christmas philosophy here.
So you're
telling me there's a chance. 1 in a million.
I like it.
What do you think will happen?
3 weeks ago, I said Alabama will win it all.
Yeah.
I also said that if they do win it all, I think Ohio State still should have been in there instead of them, which is a completely different conversation. I would look at it with a little more wavering right now because of two things. One is Fromm's performance yesterday, and because of some of the injuries that Alabama has, and we don't know how they are yet. Anthony Jennings, pass rusher, was big. Lester Cotton, offensive lineman. Don't know how those guys are going to be. But I still will stay with Alabama to pull this thing off.
Very quick. Any way would you change the system so a team that has a year like UCF could have a chance in a playoff?
Yes. Very quick. I would have an 8-team playoff.
That's what we think,
Yeah.
For the same reasons you think, but probably for different underlying reasons, which would make a lot of people really mad at me.
Right.
Which we can talk about another day.
But over the top.
No, let's throw that out there now.
But over the top.
We'll tease something from three months from now.
You know what it's like? It's like a picket fence.
Yes. Or that picket fence analogy is like the anaconda squeezing
with
the life out of the shell.
With an anaconda laying on top of the picket fence.
There
How
you
about
go.
that?
Well, then the picket fence would fall apart.
Yeah.
That would be one terrified picket fence.
Yes.
That's exactly right. Not so much a terrified anaconda for being on the picket fence. Trevor, we appreciate it.
You can
Thanks
file
so
down
much.
the tips, though.
We've got all kinds of issues. Coming up, the best turnaround in recent sports memory, and it could lead to big changes in college football. Next on Golic and Wingo. Well, as we continue here on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Those were the words of Scott Frost, who at that time was still the head coach of UCF. Now he goes on to the University of Nebraska. But you know what? I don't think you can talk enough about not only the season UCF has had and the job Scott Frost did there, but the turnaround for this team. And Mike, he nailed it. Look, they beat Auburn. Auburn beat both Georgia and Alabama. And a lot of people said, well, UCF doesn't even deserve to be on the field with Auburn. Well, they proved that they absolutely did, and they beat that team 34-27.
You know, and there are going to be the people that say, and I've said this, bowl games are a different breed at times. That's why when everybody started spouting the record of the Big Ten and the Big Ten, how can they not have a Final Four member with the record they have? I don't put bowl game records into all of a sudden you're the top conference around. You prove that during the season.
Because of the variety of motivational
of the
issues.
different things that can happen. And there are those that say Auburn wasn't as motivated. And while some of that may be true, I will take nothing away from Central Florida for what they did. This is where they got. And they got to play one of the big boys, and they handled the big boy. So give them all the credit in the world. If UCS, or if Auburn was anywhere less than motivated, that's their problem. And I am not going to sit here and say I know that for a fact. The bottom line is they had a game to play, and UCF was the better team yesterday. This is a team, gang, 2 years ago. Just 2, not 10 years, not 5 years. 2 years ago was 0-12. And they were losing by giving up scores of like 31, 46, 40, 30, 56, 52, 46, 44, 44. They scored under 20 points 10 times that year, under 10 points 4 times that year, and 10 points on one of those times. So they were a bad football team that the next year they went and they won 6 games, enough to get to a bowl game, to which they lost to Arkansas State. In the Automation Cure Bowl. How about that?
Sure.
Yeah. So they went 0-12 to 6 wins to now not losing a game. I mean, it's an incredible turnaround. It's a tribute to their coach, that staff, the players he got, and to get the players to buy in to what he was selling.
Well, To that point, I'm glad you brought that up because people will say, well, they got better players. Yeah, they did. But there were 51 of the players on this undefeated team at UCF that went defeated 2 years ago. 51. That's a significant number. So did they get some new players and better players? Yeah. Absolutely. But coaching always matters. You had 51 guys at UCF that 2 years ago didn't know what it was like to win a game, and now they go and don't know what it's like to lose a game, and they take down an SEC powerhouse in the bowl game. You cannot say enough about the job that Scott Frost has done there.
No, you can't. And you also knew once he started doing that, he wasn't going to last there. That's the one thing is everybody, it's like PJ Fleck at Western Michigan.
Yes.
When he started being successful, you knew that was going to be the hot candidate out there, right? And he was going to move on. It's a little more different when you look at, Fisher leaving Florida State to go to Texas A&M.
I mean, big.
And then there's different reasons behind the scenes there can be, but this is purely listen, UCF is not in the Power 5. You hit a glass ceiling as long as there's only 4 teams in the playoffs. You're not going to get there. You can go undefeated again next year. They're not going to get there. That's why none of us believe Lane Kiffin, even with the 10-year contract he
which
signed
we asked him about
yesterday, is going to be there for 10 years. He may not be there for 2 more years. If he keeps being successful there, the Power 5s are going to come a-calling, and they will.
Right.
Even though he wasn't very successful when he was a head coach in a Power 5 at Tennessee, they're going to come a-calling, and he's going to leave, and he's going to take another. There's no way he's going to be there for 10 years, in my opinion. I don't know anybody that thinks he would be. So you knew this was going to happen. You kind of liked the way it happened because even there at Central Florida, they knew it was going to happen. So it ended amicably, enough so where he coached them in the bowl game.
Yes.
He coached them in a bowl game through the first time ever an early signing period as well, to where he's got to try and sign guys for Nebraska during getting in preparation to play Auburn. All they wanted was a chance against the big boys. He gets it. He's got to start putting his staff together in Nebraska. He's got to do an early signing period for guys in Nebraska and get ready to play Auburn with his undefeated team. So you like the way that ended. Amicable. The school was great to him as far as leaving, enough to let him coach this game, and he coached them to a victory. And as he said afterward, he didn't want to say anything during the season about it, but he feels they were disrespected. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to pick. It's UCF this year. It would have been Houston 2 years ago even if they beat UConn and went undefeated. They were 19th by the committee before that loss to UConn, and it was their only loss. So they wouldn't have been any higher than 12th had they won their last couple of games. It's just not going to happen. So we either just understand that, say it's never going to happen unless a UCF or a Houston opens up, like Houston last year beat Oklahoma in their first game.
Right.
But then they lost 3 games, so it didn't matter. But that's what these teams are going to have to do. They're going to have to play those big teams early on in the season and try and get those bigger wins to at least set themselves up that they got that big one. But for the most part, they're not going to be there until the system changes.
And hopefully that system will change. I don't know if it's going to be happening anytime soon, but I think it will be happening. But one of those players that went through this sort of roller coaster ride for UCF is Shaquem Griffin. And this was Shaquem Griffin after the game and after the win over Auburn on the field.
I come from a guy who lost it all, who lost every single game, and to come back, losing it all to winning it all, you can't ask for more than that. I mean, I'm thankful for this. Look at UCF fan base. We can't ask more for that. I remember when there was only 3 people in the stands, and now you got UCF still rocking at the end of the game. I mean, I'm just thankful for everybody.
And for people that don't know his story, first of all, he's the twin brother of Shaquille Griffin, who is now a starting cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks. And yes, he started because there were a lot of injuries to the Legion of Boom, but he has a bright future as a cornerback for the Seahawks in the NFL. Shaquem is his twin brother, 60 seconds younger. Now, the story there is remarkable. For people that don't know Shaquem, he plays football at a very high level with one hand.
One hand.
He has no left hand. He was born with an issue that eventually had to have that hand basically taken off and removed. And the story goes that Shaquille, who is now in the NFL and playing for the Seahawks, he had a dream. He always wanted to play for the University of Miami. That was his goal. He wanted to be a University of Miami Hurricane. He was offered a scholarship by the University of Miami, but he said, I will only go if you also give my brother, Shaquem, a scholarship. And Miami said, well, we can't do that. We're not going to do that. So Shaquille said, that's fine. I'm not going to go. So he turned down his dream of playing at Miami to go play with his brother. Mm-hmm. And the two of them went to UCF. They both were on that squad that were on 2015 that didn't win a game. And they both played together last year on the squad that won 6 games and went to a bowl game. And Shaquille stuck with his brother. They both got scholarships at UCF. And I'm telling you, Shaquem Griffin is going to get drafted.
He's a good player.
He is going to get drafted. It is a remarkable story of perseverance and will and want to. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't just a player. He was a very good player this season for Central Florida.
He was,
it really is a remarkable
thing.
Great
story.
6'2", 229-pounder. He's recovered 3 fumbles. He's intercepted a pass. He intercepted that pass with 0 functional hands, by the way. It's just ridiculous. He was the All-American Defensive Player of the Year, All-American Athletic Conference, the American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year. So the next time someone says you can't do something, think about
Look
this
at this
kid.
guy, how he can.
And by the way, kudos to his brother also for turning down the dream of his life to go there and say, no, I'm going to play. I want to be with my brother. It's a great story.
It's a great story.
It's one of the many great stories that have come from UCF. And quite frankly, I look forward to the day in April, whether it's on a Thursday night, a Friday night, or more likely sometime on that Saturday, where we hear Shaquem Griffin's name called in the draft. It'll be one of the great moments of the draft, and it was a great moment for him last night. So congratulations to UCF. Congratulations to Shaquem, and we look forward to seeing what happens both with the program and Shaquem at the next level. All right, coming up, our NFL front office insider Louis Riddick will help us sort out the coaching searches and preview Wild Card Weekend. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN2.
It's Darius Rucker, also known as loser in our fantasy football.
One of many losers.
That's right. There's 11 people, only one winner. It was my wife. The rest of us were losers. Golic and Wingo, presented by 100flowers.com, starting off the year with a little romance is easy at 100flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for just $29.99, you get another dozen absolutely free. You want to order? Go to 100flowers.com/ESPN.
All right, we are Golic and Wingo. Lots to get to. Louis Riddick joins us, our fine NFL front office insider, former safety and former director of pro personnel for Washington and Philadelphia. You know, we were just having this conversation in the Twitter segment, so I want to get your thoughts on it. I believe Baker Mayfield's going to be the swing draftee. I mean, he's going to be the guy in the first round that's either going to be we love him or we hate him. There's going to be all that controversy about him. Forget the flag waving and the grabbing of certain areas and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Straight X's and O's. What is your analysis right now of Baker at the next level?
Look, I think the thing that's going to scare people, let me just start there about Baker, is, look, he doesn't have all the ideal measurables, so therefore, if he doesn't pan out, people will not feel as though they have the safety net that they would have if they were looking at a guy like Josh Allen, let's say in particular, right? Because that's what scouts tend to look for. They tend to look for, if my guy doesn't work, how can I then say, well, it really wasn't me, it was something that he didn't do to utilize all his physical skills.
Self-preservation first.
Absolutely. I mean, that, because it's a league of survival many times, and I get that. You know, I've done that myself. But I'll say this about Baker Mayfield. If you watch his tape during the regular season, this is a guy who I don't think will have any problem transitioning to a pro-style, quote-unquote, passing attack, because he's a guy who spread the field laterally and vertically. He could throw the ball at all 3 levels very accurately. And if you watch him last night, still within the context of their offense, now he didn't have one of his best games. No. His interception there in the second half was one of those where you go, that's not something you saw him do a whole lot during the regular season. But I think he's going to be a fine quarterback. I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. I think he needs, like every other quarterback though, Baker's going to need to go to someone. Obviously, whoever picks him is going to like him. Whoever picks him has to understand that there are going to be some limitations because of the fact that he is a little bit shorter. So you have to make sure that your guard play is very strong, your pocket play is very strong, and the chemistry between him and his quarterback coach, him and his offensive coordinator has to be where you need it to be. You have to be willing to understand that he's a fiery player who's going to be someone who's a little bit, on the edge, who plays right up to the edge. Mm-hmm. But I think how he will transition to the NFL, look, that throw that you're seeing right there on the field, rolling left, getting your shoulder square, hitting and throwing a laser in the back of the end zone. You see those flowers. You see those all the time in the NFL, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
So I mean, he's going to be just fine. But there's going to be a lot of talk about him. There's going to be some things you're going to have to find out about him and make sure that you're comfortable with. But I think he's a much better passer than what Johnny Manziel was. I don't like that comparison at all.
We were just about to ask you that.
I completely agree.
That's not even a valid
I completely agree. He's going to have to be better than a fine player if you're drafting in the first round, though, for sure. And to me, I think he missed when the windows got tight last night in the second half. he missed them.
Yep.
And we always talk about Big 12, their bigger windows, and I've always brought up, name me the last Big 12 quarterback that's done anything in the NFL. And you want to say it's a bad rap, that's fine, but name me one that goes into the NFL and hits the tighter windows. Now, I know everybody thinks Pat Mahomes is going to be that guy.
Right.
We're going to have to wait.
He looked good Sunday.
He did.
You know what?
And we're going to have to wait and see, but Baker just missed enough of those last night that gave me a little bit, because I love everything about the guy, and I hope he does well in the NFL. I love his fire. I love his passion, but that just gave me a little bit of pause last night.
Yeah, but, on the flip side, Mike, I'd say this: during the regular season, I saw him hit enough of those throws to where it doesn't concern me, and maybe last night was just one of those where, look, he wasn't that sharp. When Jared Goff came out of Cal, a lot of the windows that he was throwing into weren't exactly super tight windows, but Jared was very, very smooth, very efficient within that Cal offense. And now that he's in an offense where, I'll tell you what, a lot of the windows that he's thrown into now at L.A. aren't very tight either, because the scheme of the offense is such that right now Sean McVay is operating on a whole new level. Mm-hmm. And right now offensive play is at a whole new level than defensive play. Offensive play right now I think is a step or two above defensive play in the NFL easily.
I agree. And I think the offensive now in the NFL will help a guy like Baker Mayfield be more successful.
There's no
the
doubt.
NFL.
Because you know what? A lot of that talk about the windows being so much tighter in the NFL. Okay, well, I could show you about 15 or 16 defenses that the windows I could walk through. I could drive a truck through. There's plenty of wide receivers who are running wide open, because defensive play is not the same as it used to be when we played. It's just not. It's very passive now. It's very soft.
And it has to be, or guys lose money.
That's right. And you know what? So that's why I think a lot of those old concerns about what quarterbacks will need to do once they get to the NFL, I think a lot of that stuff gets overblown now. And what it is, it's people trying to say, look, I'm not sure about a guy, so I need to point to a few things that may be a concern for him. I'm not really that concerned about Baker.
All right, Louis Riddick with us. We got a minute left in this segment, and we're going to hold you over to the start of the next hour. But real quickly, where does Baker fit in terms of quarterbacks that you think will go in the draft? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where do you think he is?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guys with the idea of measurables, look, Josh Rosen, Josh Allen, those are going to be the people who, measurable wise, are going to have everybody most excited. If Sam Darnold actually comes in the draft, it'll be those three probably at the very top. Although Josh Allen, look, I'd be scared to death. If you watch his film, you tell me who you would want between him and Baker Mayfield.
You want to talk about a difference of watching his play, but looking at him,
and that's what it's going to come down to. But look,
he looks like
Trey. He's in that group of four.
Right.
So it's just a matter of where and what people are willing to accept in terms of risk.
And that's going to be the big thing going forward. I always like to say we should have one draft at the end of the season and see how it compares to the draft that comes up after the Underwear Olympics and everything else. Yeah. All right, Louis is staying with us. We'll discuss head coaching options. Plus, we'll talk to the recently retired Bruce Arians. Stay with us.